Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Latched podcast. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Latched podcast is a podcast for those of us in the trenches of mother and parenthood. Today, we are going to talk about sharing the load of all of the things we have on our plate with our partners.
You're listening to Latched Mama Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, busy mom of 6 and owner of LatchedMama.com. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, and all things motherhood.
So for those of you who don't know, Lindi and I try to walk most mornings when the sun is out. And I feel like most of our walks start with some sort of conversation about what is on our plate, what we're taking on, what our partners are hopefully helping us with. Normally we start from like the afternoon before, and then we talk about the day of, and then we regroup the next day to just kind of see how it all plays out. Also, for those of you who do not know, Lindi and I both have 12 kids combined. So there are people and things moving in a million different directions all the time.
Yeah.
So getting people where they need to be and what time they need to be literally takes an army of people and thought and energy.
And there's those times of the year where things drop off and things get added, and right now is this time with swim team and school and
so like school ends, and then for me in the homeschool world, it is how are we going to show achievement or the fact that they move forward. Are they going to take tests? Are we going to write a letter? We have wonderful Allie who has her master's in education who teaches our children, so she can easily write a letter for us. She can do an assessment on each of the kids. Like, what are we going to do?
You normally take the test.
We normally do the test. I don't think we're going to do that this year, though. But, it's like all of the weight. So then you have that starting, you have that stopping, and then what activities are going to continue for the summer. And, we kind of do year-round learning in our house and, what activities the kids have. And, oh, my gosh.
All the things.
Like, does anybody ever, like, just lay in bed in the morning? It's really funny. Like, Eric and I are in a really, really good spot right now, which is I think marriages go boop, doo, 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 up and down. And we've been together for 13 years, and we've been together for 16. We've been married for 13. But right now we're really good. But it's interesting because he'll ask me questions now, like when I'm zoning out. I think it's him trying to say that he sees me and connect and all of that stuff. And sometimes I don't even want to tell him what's going on in my head because it's like, doctor's appointments and who needs shoes and who needs a bathing suit and what's going on and who's going where and here and there. But it looks like I'm just scrolling on my phone, but it's never. Is it ever just scrolling on your phone?
No.
Not
normally.
Yeah.
Or there is, but it lasts maybe about 30 seconds before I'm like, yep, got to, hop out and do this and make a note on this. And
it's so funny because you have like the actual like physical tasks that have to happen like in the household, like just like the simple activities and, feeding and clothing and sleeping and like all of those things that the kids have to like be alive.
Yeah.
But then you have on top of that, you have the worries and the cares and the concerns. And literally, I don't know how there's space for anything else.
I wish I could have like this little recorder in my brain just from when I wake up and it just documents all the notes to self or need to do this or need to do this because like you said, it's not just cooking dinner. It is the mental thought, what do we want to have? So it's the planning, then it's the shopping, and then it's like, well, how are you going to get it? Are you going to the store and you're bringing it back? Are we getting it delivered by Walmart? Who's bringing it inside? Who's putting it away? Like there are so many steps to one thing that
and it's so interesting because we'll give you guys some tips that work for us. There's a pretty well-known book out there now called Fair Play that we've dug into a little bit. I actually haven't slowed down to actually read it cover to cover. But, it just really kind of talks about this dilemma of how to get the stuff out of your brain and how to get somebody else to hold it and to help you with it. I know for me, I went through this. I've gone through the ups and the downs and the phases throughout my motherhood journey of really, truly not understanding that when I pass a task off to somebody else, I need to surrender complete control of how that task is completed. And I think once I reached that point, and I feel like for the most part, when I pass something off now, I just literally have to let it go. It has been life-changing to me. Is like, so yesterday we were talking about this on our walk. For example, there was this whole big mess with swim practice last night because it was raining and there was a parents meeting and there was a pizza party, and I have one kid who practices at 5 and then I have 3 that practice at 6. And it was raining and it was just gross out, and the one that's older that practices at 5 was actually going to have swim practice, and then the 3 that practice at 6, they actually said it's too cold, they're not going to get in the water, but still come and get a piece of pizza and whatever. And I was exhausted. It was Tuesday after a holiday, so I convinced the 3 not to go. So my mom took the 1. Okay, now Lindi kind of brought me back to earth today when we started walking because I was so angry, because what happened was I set the expectation that they were going to go, Nathan was going to swim and going to eat a piece of pizza, and then they were going to come home. Well, I gave the task to my mother. He left with my mom. Okay. At that point, I needed to put my hands up in the air and say, I will see him when I see him. He will go to bed at some point tonight.
You got to preface with who didn't want to go.
Yes. So Alex, so the 9-year-old.
So the bros that hang together.
The bros that always hang together didn't want, like, Alex just wanted to play the switch. He did not want to go to swim practice. So he was home with me, whatever. We made dinner. Everything was great. But I gave my mom the task. Okay. An hour went by, 2 hours went by, 3 hours go by. It's 8:30 and Nathan walks in with like a 20-count chicken nuggets, and he had literally played with his friends at the pool for like 3 hours. So the night went completely differently than the expectation that I had given the other kids on how the night was going to go. And if any of you all have older children or big families, it completely threw everything on its head, because Alex, who decided not to go because he thought it was just swim practice and a piece of pizza and then they would come home, was devastated that Nathan got to play with his friends. And then on top of that, they got McDonald's, which is like a 4 times a year, like, I don't even want to call it a treat, but it was like this whole big thing. Alex cried himself to sleep last night. It was this big mess, but I was almost very angry at my mother, because I was like, how dare you turn this family on its head? All of the kids are out of sorts. Can I have a chicken nugget? But they've all brushed their teeth and they're getting ready to go to bed. And what is this 11-year-old doing eating McDonald's in my bedroom, which just kind of I just kind of wanted to throw up watching the whole thing. And it was just this whole big thing. And then I was like, I can't get mad at her.
Yeah.
Why can't I get mad at her? I mean, I can feel mad at her because my feelings are very valid.
Yes, you can feel frustrated because now you got to deal with the fallout. But I think we also can look at it. That was great special time for them. You handed off the task. She technically executed it differently than I would have wanted
100% differently than I would have.
Yes, you have one happy child, but he didn't want to go to said practice. He just wanted to do the fun and the party.
Yeah,
so,
which I didn't think was happening. I mean, it's fine.
Heck,
but
you can do that. Absolutely. Yeah. But he didn't want to go. He wanted to play the switch. Yeah. So,
and it doesn't mean when you pass off a task to somebody, or you pass off like food shopping to your partner, that you guys can't, your opinions don't matter at all. That you can't regroup about said task and say, hey, I would have bought green grapes instead of red grapes, or, hey, I would rather make the tacos with ground turkey instead of ground beef. Why did this happen? Like, you definitely can still have conversations, but at the end of the day, nobody is probably going to do things exactly the way you would have done them.
In my mind, like, I'd love to go back to like the beginning, you know, when something where we have this new little baby and our mom brains just go, I am full on. I do everything. Yeah. You want it done your way. And I totally connect with that. So like, I'd hope someone sitting on the couch just not in a state, but just like, what do? I feel like I'm taking on everything. Maybe you're at that tipping point where like, hey, I've got to do something about it. I know, and I've seen that I can't do it all. I shouldn't be doing it all. Just kind of having all of these feelings, and how do you take baby steps from here? Because I mean, I think it's 18 years this year. I've known him for 23. We're just getting to where we're doing a much better job of sharing. So it took us that long. So it's not a quick fix. It's not an easy one. Both need to be validated. But what are those little steps that you could take towards, like, I'm overwhelmed with all of this? And I think, we did bring up the Fair Play. Honest, I ordered it on March 23rd. I have not read it yet. But it's being able to take all of these things that we take in our brain and be able to visualize them and see how you can support each other.
Know what the first step is? And I don't know if this is what's in the book, but I would double down on the first step. And this is, I feel like, the first step of so many things we talk about on this podcast, is that you have got to realize that you are more than just a mother, and that your worth matters, and that passing some of these tasks off to somebody else is actually a sign of strength, finding time for things that are actually important to you and to take care of yourself. Because what happens is all of these tasks start piling up to the point where you lose yourself underneath them, and they're all do, and suddenly you're down here. It's 10 o'clock at night and you need sleep, and that's your basic human necessity. You're going to eat something really fast and go to sleep.
Now, you might have come into marriage and into that a little bit differently. Like, I was young. I had a couple kids very quickly. And if anybody lives in America, we all know how expensive childcare is. So honestly, you have 2 kids, and unless you're making a significant amount of money, it's really not the best choice to do that. So I was home. That it literally became who I was. And I know there are hundreds of moms out there that feel the exact same way. You literally, like, embody that is who you are. When something, if your husband's like, maybe he doesn't say it very nicely, but why is there still crap all over the floor? And oh my gosh, that is personal to who I am, to like my entire being, and where it's really not, but you just completely embody, because
that's your job,
mother, and it becomes your job, which I don't like it becoming your, because it's not. I don't know. Anyways, but yes, you are so much more than this. And it's okay to let some of those things go, but holy moly, is it hard?
Yeah. I mean, Eric's been the biggest advocate in our life always for, not always my happiness, but always being willing to ask for help, and truly, truly not losing myself in all of this. So, I mean, I'd probably still be, I don't know, struggling to ask for help if he didn't push me. But I remember, like, the whole point of starting Latched Mama was the fact that he was like, you are unhappy. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm good. I have everything I've ever wanted in life. I have 2 beautiful children. I don't have to work anymore. Work, quote unquote. Everything's great. I get to make dinner every night. This is so much fun. And he's like, you are unhappy. And I'm like, there's no way I'm unhappy. And at this point, I had zero ability to feel anything or process what was actually happening. And he was like, it's time to figure out something. And that was kind of the birth of Latched Mama. And then it was very interesting in the very beginning days, not the very beginning, but probably the first 2 to 3 years of the starting of the company. About every 6 months, by clockwork, you could almost look at a calendar, we were growing so rapidly, as well as the family was growing so rapidly, that I would hit this point where I was almost like paralyzed with the weight of the tasks at home. I was always pregnant or nursing at that time, and the tasks of the growing company. And I would literally get paralyzed to the point where I could not function. I couldn't do any of them, even just simply like making dinner. Or it wasn't really depression. It was just, which way do I go? And there were so many roadblocks everywhere. And that was always a signal to me. Once it happened 2, 3, 4 times, I realized that was a signal to me that we needed to hire somewhere. So either get more help at home or get more help at Latched Mama. And it's really interesting now because I can recognize it. And now the team at home as well as here is large enough that I can start to figure out, hey, it's probably not that we need to add anybody right now, but it is that I do need to like take a look at my list and figure out what I can delegate off of it and who I can trust with these different elements that have to happen. And once you can start mastering that, And I think that there's probably a little bit of like perfectionism tied up for a lot of people in it too, because like I said before, nobody's going to do it the way you would do it. And learning that you're going to fail and do it imperfectly. So you might as well let somebody else fail and do it imperfectly as well.
Yeah. And I think speaking of things looking different, I think every family looks different too.
Yep.
And maybe you do have a little bit more of what you would call kind of traditional, and you know, maybe one parent is home full time and the other is working full time. I think that's kind of where we were for a very long time. And I look back and I think it was a good place to start. Say, okay, these are both our working hours. You know, during this time, this is kind of what we're both responsible for. But outside of those hours, that's where I was struggling, and I was still taking on a lot of either the mental or physical load of that. And I think that's a great place to start, because then you're not really pulling and struggling. You know, if you do like full-time breadwinner per se for that job, you're pulling, well, I need help at 11 a.m. Well, that, like, it's just, if they're truly providing financially right now for everybody, like there are those set hours, but what do those hours look like after? And making sure that people are validated and heard. And
and I mean, it's still like a work in progress. Like, to give you another example from our family. So my kids had a birthday party on Saturday, and it was for 2 twins. Okay. A girl and a boy. And it wasn't really a party for the girl, but I was like, you can't show up because they're close family friends. I'm like, you can't show up, you know, for Noah's party without a present for Presley. Like, whatever, it's fine. And Presley loves T Swift, and I was like, this is going to be fun. Like, let me put something together for her. So I looked at my husband and I was like, hey, the party's Saturday, and it was probably Tuesday at this point. I'm going to take care of Presley. You and the boys need to take care of Noah. Okay. Next morning, I check in. Eric's making breakfast, which he does every morning. One of his things that he does, which is fantastic. Hey, you good? You know, Noah's party's on Saturday. You and the boys got this? Yeah, we got it. I think it was, it was actually, so this is actually really funny because I kept telling the party was on Saturday. So Friday morning, I realized I haven't RSVP'd for said party. So I text the mom and I'm like, hey, just wanted to let you know, Nathan's in for the boys are in for the party. And she's like, that's great. And I was like, it's tomorrow, right? And she goes, no, it's today. So I go into the kitchen and I was like, hey, well, first of all, the whole task of me trying to get these kids to where they needed to go, which is kind of lays on me. I really messed up, and the party's actually tonight. And he just kind of looks at me and I was like, how's that present coming? He's like, I thought I had until tomorrow. And I was like, well, presents has been done for 2 days. You could have easily stepped up. But it was really cute because we worked on it together throughout the day, and I gave him some of my those like mom hacks you have in your brain, like, hey, do you have the Target app on your phone? And he was like, how do I do a pickup at Target? And it's just like one of those, oh God, like how many millions have I done in my life? And I'm like, hey, guess what? Also GameStop, because they wanted to get him a controller. GameStop, allows you to do same day pickup as well. There's 2 really close to us. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. So it's really cute, like to watch them kind of learn some of the things that we need to learn. But anyways, it all worked out. But it was one of the first times that I was like, here's a task, beginning to end, figure it out. Yeah. He did a great job. Yeah. I think. But he did tell me that they went to Walmart together, the 3 boys. So Nathan's 11, Alex is 9, and then Eric. And he's talking to me. We're going to bring the boys on Friday night. And he's like, so I have a confession. He's like, so we went to get the birthday present. He's like, but we bought probably more stuff for us and the family than we actually did for Noah. And I was like, well, ding, 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 ding. That is why the bank account sometimes looks the way it does. That's what happens.
I think it's so great, though. And as hard as it is to say, hey, here are the tasks, we need to divvy them up. Yeah. You're going to take a full task. And you literally just let whatever that execution looks like. Happens. Because it's interesting. I think it gives that other person, that partner, a really good view of what some of the things that you tackle on a weekly basis. Yep. Like we always talk about like, oh my God, I spent so much money on groceries and things like that. Granted, there's 8 people. There's a limit, but like only but so much minimum you can spend, right? But I don't know what day I was. I think I was at the volleyball tournament. They came back and he's like, hey, we're just going to run to Publix. And I'm like, okay, ding, ding, ding. Like Publix, this is like the most expensive store ever. But you know what? He does it and he's like, comes back and he's like, obviously they get way more because he takes the little ones and they shop and he shops and he comes back and he's like, we spent so much money. I was like, see, like how hard it, like it's just, it's a very good eye opener as far as taking on somebody else's task. And really, I think you have more kind of respect and understanding and patience because it's not something that you would normally do maybe as a partner. So
it's not always an easy transition. I will be completely honest. No. Like when you start this whole conversation, if you haven't had it yet, and it's a process. Eric and I went back and forth lately in this whole new little beautiful season that we're in. And it took me like really being transparent. And this is also, it's so funny when we show up here because we have done a substantial amount of work in the past few years on ourselves too. So it's hard not to discount that, I feel like, in some of these conversations. But lately I've just been a little bit more like confident in my conversations with the fact that I need him to see me and I need him to help me. And he went off on his own and he has taken over like 100% at this point of the kids' schooling and communicating with Allie and stuff, which has been a huge thing off of my plate. So there's like the little tasks and then there's the big tasks. Eric also does the dentist, which is, I've talked about, I think, before on the podcast, 100% dental things. I do not touch it. I do not all the way from the tooth fairy to the cleanings to the everything, getting them there. Awesome. Rearranging their activities that they miss, working with people to make sure that there are makeup, piano lessons, whatever is happening. He does 100% of it. And I don't have to do any of it. Yeah. It's great. Is there anything that Matt does like 100% or?
We're getting a little bit more into that. I won't say 100%. Like I still like the dentists and the doctors and like I'll call or whatever, but we're into that stage where he's like, hey, if you make like a 7:30 or 8 o'clock dentist, he's like, I'll absolutely put that on my calendar. Like I'll do it.
It's awesome.
And I don't, we're still in like this learning to kind of work together and things like that. So like we were just talking about next Monday, because my nanny and Nessa can't come in until 11. She forgot about a doctor's appointment. So we're just navigating that. But I'm like, then the afternoon and Nellie needs to get to a dress rehearsal, which is like once a year. Right. But like, of course it's like Monday in the middle of the day. So he's like, we're looking at work and I'm like, do you see the calendar? So do you see what needs to happen? Yeah. Like these kinds of things. And it was a great conversation at the end. He's like, please just have patience. He's like, your mind is so much smarter. It moves so much faster than mine. Like, can you just keep that in mind? Like, I'm trying to keep up and I'm trying to do the things and I'm trying to take this off your plate, but just please know what your mind is like versus mine.
And
like,
I think sometimes,
and that's, sharing those things, I think is very good. Because it's not an excuse. It's just asking for just a little bit of grace, because then my quick next question was like, when is trash this week? Like, like 100%. That is just what happens with our brains. And his doesn't work as much in that fashion. So
I think that we do. I think that that's just such a great point, is that just like if our kids were to ask a question about not understanding something, it's almost like I'll look at Eric sometimes and think like, why on earth are you even asking that question? Like the information is so easily accessible. Like, can you look it up? Like I've told you that the kids all have swim practice tonight, But sometimes I'll realize that I haven't told him that. Sometimes it's just been in my head so much and that he's not looped in that way. Or I have talked to a kid about what's happening in the evening, but haven't talked to him. Or then you add in, my mom or one of the nannies. And I feel like I've had this conversation, but I've literally forgotten him. Like he has been left out of the entire thing. And it's interesting because I think I would say, I mean, I can't speak for most couples, but I know for Eric, he wants to be more involved than than it kind of comes off sometimes, or that I allow him to be, or something like that. Like I assumed the other night that he wanted to stay at home with the baby and, play on his phone and play with the baby or do whatever. But he actually wanted to be watching the kids at swim practice. And I don't know why those conversations haven't happened in the past in our marriage, but I don't think anything's changed. I think just opening up, slowing down enough and sharing enough of the information and saying, hey, these are the options tonight. Somebody really needs to stay at home with the baby because we can't have them on the pool deck.
Yeah.
You know, somebody needs to bring the kids at this time. Somebody needs to bring the kids at this time. We have these adults in play in this situation. Yep. Which one would you like to do? And they might surprise you.
Yeah. And I think that's another conversation we've had recently to where he's like, I hate to even ask this. He's like, I have a lot of feelings about it. He's like, I feel embarrassed. I feel left out sometimes. He's like, but tell me what your process is for the dentist. Like, and it sounds like holy hell, why am I even asking this question? It's embarrassing. It's whatever. But I think sometimes we as partners, and I'm not going to even say as women, but it was for me, you just do because maybe you have asked sometimes and you've been not supported, or you just don't because it's another mental step. And we're like, I don't want to take that on, so I'm just going to do it myself. Yeah. But you're not actually giving your partner that option. You're not really working together. They don't get to be a part of the day-to-day. And so these are the conversations we have had lately. And I'm like, okay, well, here, I'm going to share you the contact. So like now he does. Like you asked about the dentist and doctor. He has all those contacts. And we're getting there. But I do think that's a valid point that it can be, quite with blinders on, and then they're asking questions about that are very simple, but they don't really know the process.
But it's just like anything else in life. You have to do it to gain the confidence. And that's like, Benjamin had terrible, terrible stomach pains this weekend. And we don't normally react to things. Like we normally just kind of sit back, but Eric's had appendicitis. And then he also had this terrible, tragic story of a friend who had pediatric appendicitis. It didn't end well. But anyways, Eric was, for the first time with a medical situation with our kids, a little like wrapped up in the whole situation. And we were contemplating bringing him to either the ER or urgent care or something like that, which isn't always a conversation that we have a lot in our family. But I looked at Eric and I was like, are you comfortable bringing him? And he just kind of looked at me and like his eyes got really big. And I was like, I mean, it's no different than me bringing him. And he was like, okay. And you could tell like he was kind of processing it in his brain. Like, is this like, what is this going to look like? What am I going to need? He's like, so I'm going to need the insurance card and my ID. And what do I need to bring for him? Like, it was really cute. We ended up not going and he's better and it's great and everything's fine. But giving them that opportunity of like making dinner or,
and I don't even want to say like these roles that it's always, the guy, because I think there are incredible stay-at-home dads that really, when you're in it and you're doing, you become the partner, the person that is thinking of all of these things, whether they're at home, because you have the kids all the time, a little bit more of that default parent, I guess, if you will, during the day, and your partner's a little bit more involved in something different. So this is not like men, women, you know, and it's always the guys that are like, what the heck's going on? I don't know. Or, they're not involved. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think it is, being that partner. Hey, this is what we got going on today. What could you tackle? What's your schedule look like? Yeah. Where during the day could you compromise, or where can't you? So we can work with that. Or, hey, we have a couple parents that could help with rides. How do we navigate this? Or, hey, I've gotten to the point too, where really the one thing that I can't stand doing right now, it depends on the day, is just dinner. So sometimes I will bulk cook. If I'm cooking one night, I'm making multiple meals. And then it'll, the tacos will be ready for another night. Or sometimes I'm like, I can't handle dinner tonight. Do you want to figure it out, or are we going to order something? Yeah. And he's like, yep, I'll take it on. So really just communicating.
But here's the deal. Could you have 4 years ago looked
at
him and been like, hey, I can't do dinner tonight. I'm done.
No, because if I didn't do it, I would have failed as a mother.
Absolutely.
And failed as a woman.
That's what I'm saying. So that is so the first step in this.
It takes time. Yeah. So I think it's finding those little things.
But it takes time, and it takes work, and it takes journaling, and it takes reading, and it takes learning about yourself, and it takes so much stuff.
Well, you know what I think back to for me? For me, it literally took a fourth kid.
Fourth.
If I had stopped at 3, I don't know. I don't know. That was kind of my tipping point to where nope. Can't do this by myself. Literally physically can't. And I wonder if I only had 3, if I would still be stuck. But that's hindsight, and we don't know. But you know, I think you kind of go through these things as you're supposed to.
It's all of this work and it's all of this confidence. Plus, it's just at max capacity chaos. It's like just when I feel like I can take it all back on, I just get another dog or something, you know?
No, but I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. Even if I only had one kid, you absolutely work as partners, take things on, share this,
and
share that.
And it starts
100%.
at one kid. Like, I used to roll my eyes when he used to ask me
it
where the diapers
the worst
were.
At one kid.
Yeah, like where the diapers are or where the wipes are or whatever. And I would get so pissed and angry.
How do I do this?
How do you not
Figure
know?
it out.
Like how? Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's all just it's all hard, but I think so much of it starts with us and the personal work. Because I would say, I don't know if most relationships are healthy, but most of the time I would want to think that they do want to help.
Yeah.
But I think that we keep so much of it in our brains, partly because we want to prove ourselves and we want to show ourselves as confident and capable. But you're still in there and you still need to find time for yourself. So share some of the tasks.
Yeah. And I also think, like, I'm going to go read that book, but talking about what a task is not just doing the thing. It is, there's a lot more to that task. So I do think putting these things on paper or talking about them, making them visual, helps you.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. So. I don't know. I think it's great. I think you just keep talking about it. Keep trying to figure out how to have those conversations. Surrender control. Realize that things are not going to be perfect ever, especially when you have somebody else do the task. And then just enjoy the fact that kids are getting to see things done a different way. Like, I love that. Like, I love having them go hang out with my in-laws or my mom. Or I remember remember having a conversation with my midwife after, I don't know, number 3, 4, whatever. And I was so angry and I cried to her because my mom had made lasagna with like Prego, which had like meat in it. And I'm like, how on earth can a jar of tomato sauce have meat in it and just sit on a like a shelf at a grocery store, and you can't tell me that stuff is okay for human consumption? And I was blah, 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 blah. And I actually look back on it and I'm a little bit ashamed. There's some shame wrapped up in the fact that I was not more gracious for the fact that my mom was making a meal that my kids loved and they enjoyed and their bodies were nourished by whatever it was. And that I was so judgy and I was so ready to pick apart what she was doing instead of just being so full of love and gratitude that she was showing up and she was caring for my kids in a way. It was not going to hurt them. It was actually lovely. And it was lovely that she was making them dinner. Yeah. But I was so much like, you're not making it the way that I want you to make it. Where is the homemade tomato sauce and da 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 da.
It's just so hard because we feel so out of control.
So out of control.
It's just, and nobody's doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. Your feelings are 100% validated.
Yeah,
but we're just like grasping at to
we're
feel grounded
to get
and secure,
it right, and it's because we love our kids and we love this whole process and stuff. But at some point, you just have to surrender control and choose you and choose the fact that like you still matter and that some of these tasks are going to be done by other people and they're going to be done imperfectly and they're going to be done with jarred meat sauce from the grocery store. Like, we all have our things. Not judging anybody who eats it. It's probably very delicious. Yeah. But in that moment, I could not handle the fact that it was not made the way I wanted it to be.
They'll stay alive. They'll get fed. They'll get to the bathroom. Yeah. They'll be fine.
Yeah. It's part of growing up. It's part of it. So let us know. Let us know how you guys divide the labor.
Yeah, give us tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Still journeying
not even
through
there
it.
yet.
But we see you guys and keep having conversations about it. Bye.